Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today we'll be looking at the destruction in Call to Arms, Gates of Hell, Ostfront. Every time I covered just about anything Man of War, I'd get comments about Ostfront, so finally got to it, and we had the Liberation DLC with improved building destruction come out recently, so let's have a look at what's there. I should note that I'm using Everything Stays mod. It basically runs fine in vanilla Ostfront, but in the Liberation maps, it will get heavy on performance at a certain point, so do keep it in mind. Alright, beginning with the buildings, with Liberation DLC, if you are familiar with Assault Squad 2, you know what we have. So, every building is mapped for damage throughout, and I do mean throughout. Not only the outer walls you can chip away, but the inner ones as well. The looks are alright, and with this system, you will have a very good variety of possible responses. You can see it by just messing around and testing, but in combat, in the actual gameplay, it really shines in all its glory. What you will also see is wreckage decals around some of the damaged parts, which is a very cool thing, and I think it should be more common. And if the heat wasn't enough to destroy it, you will have an impact decal and some cracks. As you can see though, when it does break, it can be quite excessive. Now there is one main difference in vanilla Ostfront. Compared to the Liberation buildings, the destruction in anything larger than a one-story shed or barn will be very limited. Some parts of it will respond and it will look nice, but most will be entirely unresponsive. Even some of the one-story buildings will have indestructible walls too, so as you can imagine, the large buildings in the background are not gonna be particularly responsive either. As for the terrain aspect, it is quite decent. So, some explosions will leave only decals, but the formation is very much there. When you see it for the first time you think, is that the formation or just a very good bump or parallax mapping? But yeah, that is very much the formation, and you will have craters of different sizes. Now, it is not dynamic deformation. You can't go deeper or expand the crater with further bombing. If another shell lands close by, you'll have only the particle effect, there will be no lasting response. Even with this in mind, the aftermath after a full round of fighting will still look very cool. A way to support the channel is the Bielakonienka artwork store. The art is by my mom, I'm handling the fulfillment, and the featured painting today is the Alfa Romeo Giulia. You know, I take a reference photo of a black car, and then with the painting touch, with the watercolor magic, you can really see all the reflections beautifully pop out. You have almost all colors of the rainbow on what you initially perceive as a black car. So, I do very much like this one. The car itself is a very nice ride, and personally, I am a fan of Alphas. We have it on print as well as mugs. That is a way to support the channel, and the links are in the description. As always, you can't have deformation and vegetation still growing there, so all of it will respond with variations for explosives. and for burning. Now, as for the weather, it is a factor in the game, but not really a massive one. You will have spreading, it will begin going to nearby flammable objects and begin destroying those, but unlike the vegetation, there is no burn variation, so those will just pop away. Also, not all fire will be functional, but can't say it doesn't look really cool. I do want to note the various props and objects you have spread around. In vanilla Ostfront, it's mainly those in the vegetation that will deliver that responsive feel, when you have explosions and higher caliber emplacements tearing those apart. The only issue I really have with those is that many won't leave a lasting response and they'll just pop away. It can make some aftermath look kind of empty. Lastly, we have the vehicle damage, which is quite great. There is a detailed damage model, projectile penetration is a major factor, you have damage and destruction of specific components, and you will have a wide variety of outcomes. Like the crew escaping a vehicle that is just no longer functional, without any flashy response. Burning engines. Several variations of burning tanks. Glorious explosions. Tank catching fire and then exploding, and so on. With all of that being based on where you hit, using what you hit, and penetration calculations. Along with that you have decals for the impacts, and a fun touch I saw is you have a bit of a glow effect. That orange thing you see right there, you will see it cool down to a dark grey kind of color. In conclusion, how responsive it will feel depends on the map. The Liberation ones are great. They will get transformed one explosion at a time, and along with everything stays mode, the end result will very much deliver that war-torn feel. This is how that town looked before. As I mentioned, everything stays mod will have an impact on performance, but for me, those results make it totally worth it. In vanilla Ostfront, I did like the rural maps. You still very much have the terrain and the vegetation respond, along with the various props, sheds and such. But the city maps will feel notably less responsive. It was strange seeing some of the unresponsive buildings, especially after playing Assault Squad 2, and I did try the regular Call to Arms for a bit, and once again pretty disappointed by the lacking building damage. Hopefully now with Liberation's release, the buildings in vanilla Ostfront will eventually get patched up to be fully destructible. That is it for this one. Do let me know how you feel in the comment section, and subscribe for more content coming really soon. Until next time.